On the night of February 19, 2026, Alysa Liu won Olympic gold in Milan and the right-wing internet immediately decided she was theirs. The posts came fast. Be an Alysa Liu. A patriot. A symbol of real America. The daughter of a Chinese political refugee who skated for the red, white and blue while Eileen Gu collected Chinese government paychecks. MAGA accounts posted her clips thousands of times. Conservative commentators celebrated her without hesitation. She was the counter-narrative they had been waiting for. Then someone found her Instagram. Pro-Palestine rally photos. Anti-ICE protest signs. And an ABC interview from 4 months earlier where she said clearly, coming from a family of immigrants, I think immigrants deserve rights. I think it is a little silly, especially in America. Things are a little rough. The accounts went quiet. Some deleted their posts. The celebration became a recalibration. This morning Rolling Stone published an interview conducted at a members-only club in New York City where Alysa Liu sat across from senior writer Alex Morris and said the most politically direct things she has ever said publicly. Not in a passing interview. Not in a quick comment at a press conference. In a full sit-down feature for the most iconic music and culture publication in America. She said, "Our family is pretty liberal thanks to my father." She said, "We are proud of his story and we are outspoken just like he was." She said, I mean he was really outspoken. A whole other level. She listed the causes. Climate. Election things. Black Lives Matter. Stop Asian Hate. ICE protests. And then she said 5 words that Rolling Stone put on their social media immediately because they understood exactly what they were. More empathy needs to happen. For sure. The debate about Alysa Liu's politics is over. She ended it herself. On record. To Rolling Stone. Here is the full context of what she said and why every word of it matters. The Rolling Stone interview is the most complete picture of who Alysa Liu is that any publication has produced since she won gold. It covers her childhood, the surrogacy, the egg donor discovery, the retirement, the comeback, the fame. And it covers the politics in a way that is not defensive or carefully worded or filtered through a media handler. It is just her talking. She was asked about growing up thinking for herself. She said her dad is so into politics. She said her whole family shares the ideology to speak up and fight for basic human rights. She said that ideology is where the liberal identity comes from. Not a party affiliation. Not a specific politician. A set of values rooted in the specific experience of a father who organized student demonstrations in China in 1989 and watched the government bring in tanks and had to flee the country he loved because he would not stop speaking. Arthur Liu raised 5 children with the values he risked everything for. The right to organize. The right to protest. The right to say what you believe even when the people in power do not want to hear it. He was smuggled out of China for those values. He built a life in Oakland for those values. He became an immigration attorney for those values. And he raised his oldest daughter to share them. She said, we go to protests, call our policymakers, write letters. That is not radical. That is citizenship. The most basic expression of the values that the United States was founded on and that Arthur Liu chose when he had the option of staying silent in China and did not take it. She was also asked directly about the political tensions surrounding the 2026 Olympics. The Trump administration had been conducting mass deportations. Amber Glenn had made comments at press conferences about the LGBTQ community facing persecution. Hunter Hess had said at a press conference that wearing the American flag did not mean he represented everything going on in the country. And Trump personally attacked him on Truth Social. In the middle of all of that, Alysa Liu had said almost nothing politically on the Olympic stage. And her silence had been claimed by the right as evidence of alignment. As if not speaking against a position means speaking for it. She told Rolling Stone, With these Olympics there was definitely some tension around the political moment we are in. But I think what US athletes do is share our stories. We are Americans, and we all have such unique stories and backgrounds. She said she was proud that she could represent who she was on the big stage on behalf of Americans who could relate to her. Think about who she is saying that to. Americans who can relate to being the daughter of a political refugee. Americans who can relate to an immigrant father who built everything from nothing. Americans who can relate to a family that goes to ICE protests because the person they love most in the world built his career fighting for the people those deportations target. She was not keeping her politics off the Olympic stage because she agreed with the current administration. She was sharing her story. And her story, told honestly and completely, has never been ambiguous about where it stands. The specific list of causes she named deserves attention. Climate. Because her generation will live with the consequences of what the current generation decides, and she knows it. Election things. A daughter of a man who fled a government that suppressed democratic participation is not going to be indifferent about elections. That is personal. Black Lives Matter. She grew up in the Bay Area. She is a member of the Asian American community. Stop Asian Hate is on her list too. The two movements are not unconnected. The specific violence against Asian Americans that spiked during and after the pandemic happened in cities like Oakland. She was there. ICE protests. Her father is an immigration attorney. He has been inside ICE detention centers on behalf of his clients. He has told journalists he fears for democracy. His daughter has attended protests against the agency whose policies he has spent his career fighting. These are not abstract political positions. Each one is a direct expression of the specific life she has lived in a specific city with a specific family. She is not performing liberalism. She is reporting on what her family does. They go to protests. They call their policymakers. They write letters. She is just like her father. Outspoken. Now here is the part of this story that the right-wing accounts and the left-wing accounts and the media outlets that have been covering the political angle are all still missing. She has never changed. The ABC interview from October 2025 where she said immigrants deserve rights was available for 4 months before anyone on the right posted her as a MAGA symbol. Nobody looked. The Instagram photos from protests were there before the gold medal. Nobody checked. The Rolling Stone interview that ran this morning is not a new Alysa Liu. It is the same Alysa Liu who attended protests with her father, who called herself the daughter of an immigrant and meant every word of it, who told a TV reporter that things are a little rough and meant that too. The right-wing accounts that celebrated her saw what they wanted to see. A Chinese-American girl who competed for America instead of China. They took that one fact and built an entire political identity around it without doing the basic work of finding out who the person actually was. She was never their symbol. She was never available for the role. She was always exactly who she is. Loudly. Publicly. On record. In ABC interviews and Instagram posts and protests she attended and letters she wrote to policymakers and Rolling Stone features where she sits in a photo shoot eating Lucky Charms cookies and tells a senior writer that her family is pretty liberal. And more empathy needs to happen. For sure. What does Alysa Liu think about being claimed and reclaimed and fought over by both sides of a political divide that she never asked to be part of? She answered that question too. Not in a press release. In a way that is completely her. She said she was proud to represent Americans who could relate to her on the big stage. She did not say she was proud to represent one side or the other. She said she was proud to represent the people whose stories look like hers. Those people are not a political party. They are immigrants and their children. Families who fled violence and built lives from nothing. Kids who grew up in Bay Area apartments with 3 bunk beds and a father who tracked their jump speeds with a radar gun and also took them to BLM marches. People who are American not because America is perfect but because someone in their family chose it anyway and built something anyway and raised their children to speak up and fight for basic human rights the same way they did. She is not a MAGA symbol. She is not a progressive trophy. She is not a counter-narrative to Eileen Gu or a political weapon for anyone to throw at anyone else. She is the daughter of Arthur Liu, the man who got smuggled out of China with nothing and became an immigration attorney in Oakland and raised 5 children on 3 bunk beds and said his daughter has some magic. She is outspoken just like he was. A whole other level. And she just said so. On record. To Rolling Stone. While eating Lucky Charms cookies at a photo shoot in New York. Nobody's trophy. Still. Always.